So I have, okay. So that was my last slide, and I would like to formally welcome Chris to the Power BI Community Times in South Florida. As some of you may know, Christopher Finlan is currently a principal program manager on the Power BI team, and he's leading the efforts around Paginated Reports, Power BI Report Server, SSRS still, I think,
Yep.
and the amazing Power BI Premium per user. Please, Chris, tell us more about yourself.
Sure.
And again, thank you very much for being here today.
Sure. No, it's my pleasure, Cecilia. So, as Cecilia mentioned, first of all, that picture is shamefully old on my.
But that's from your LinkedIn.
It's from my LinkedIn, yes. And my realtor used to tell me the trick is just to leave your picture up as long as possible. That picture's from like 2009. I really need to change it.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I know. But being bald, you don't change a whole lot. But I think it's. I see that picture. I'm like, man, okay, it's probably time to go update that. So, as Cecilia mentioned, yes, I'm the program manager that's in charge of on-prem SQL Server Reporting Services and Power BI Report Server, the online or the cloud implementation of that in Power BI, which is Paginated Reports. I did lead the effort around premium per user from a business perspective, but there was an entire team of engineers that obviously spent the time to implement that, and on the Premium Gen 2 platform, which many of you may have heard about over the last several months. My team also is responsible for things like email subscriptions all up in Power BI, and when you export to PDF or PowerPoint, that's my team owns the service that powers those actions as well. So I know that the AMA today is framed around premium per user and Paginated Reports. I'm happy to answer other questions if I can. You may get an answer of I don't know or I'm not the right person, but if you ask me a question, I will give you an answer. I just can't guarantee you'll like the answer. So it's great to be with you all here. I've been in the Power BI team now, I guess almost 6 years. 6 years before that, I was in the field. I'm from Philadelphia. If you could see on my wall behind me, a number of things related to the Eagles and the Phillies. So I've been now out in Seattle for the last 6 years, and very, very excited to be talking to you today about the latest way to purchase Power BI Premium, which is on a per user basis. So first question here, do you know what Power BI Premium per user is? And so far, 4 of you have responded to say one person does not, which is great. And then what I'm telling you today will not be useless. So that's always good.
Yeah, you can connect through the browser or use, from your phone, from your laptop. Use the code that you have there, 57784662. I think this is anonymous, or at least it's not display your name. So,
yeah,
and it's okay if you don't know what Power BI Premium per user is. Yeah,
fine. So while
we're here for that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're here for. So while people are answering that, let me tell you a little bit about the backstory of Premium per user, and hopefully you find this interesting. I at least like telling a story. So when you talk about Power BI in its current form, everybody likes to forget about Power BI for Office 365, but I haven't forgot about that because that's what I had to sell when I was in the Microsoft field. So Power BI in its current form came online about 2015. And when it first came out, there was effectively one user license that you paid for, Power BI Pro. So there was Power BI Free and Power BI Pro. Power BI Free was obviously free. Power BI Pro was you'd pay in the $9.99 a month, and you'd get all the capabilities that you actually get today as it relates to Power BI Pro. The issue that came along was that buying Power BI or any BI product on a per user basis is great for smaller organizations or even medium-sized organizations, but once you get to companies at scale, that becomes incredibly expensive. If you think about companies that have 100,000, 200,000, 400,000 users, paying $10 a user a month for each of those organizations, you're talking about a very, very hefty bill. And what Microsoft decided to introduce was a licensing model that was similar to one we have for SQL Server today, which is where you can buy on a per core basis and allow people to go and view content without needing a named user license. So Power BI Premium came along, and that was the biggest reason that Power BI Premium was introduced. Along with that, yes, some additional capabilities came there in terms of scale, but really the major reason, one of the major reasons people still buy Power BI Premium today is around the unlimited distribution you could do inside a large organization. This was great for large organizations. However, over time, more features were introduced that took advantage of the Power BI premium capacity, those additional cores that you were purchasing and having a dedicated environment for you to go and run your workloads. Things like analysis services or the large data sets, things like Paginated Reports, which came along later, things like the AI capabilities like AutoML, advanced data flows capabilities. So as these items came along, especially when it came to Paginated Reports, there's a huge install base of users that would love to take advantage of those capabilities because they use them today with SQL Server Reporting Services. But unfortunately, they simply didn't make economic sense for their organizations or their use cases to go and purchase a premium capacity, which starts at $5,000 a month. And Cecilia and many others in the partner and MVP community provided lots of feedback about what a big problem this was and when is Microsoft going to solve it and when are you going to make it available at a lower price point. So we went, and the reason I'm even involved is because I would go and stick my nose where it potentially doesn't belong and say, hey, we need to solve for this for my particular area. And it's like, okay, we'll go figure it out. And so we did. We went and spent a lot of time with marketing and business planning, did a lot of surveys, interviewed a lot of customers, and we came up with a number of options. And the one that made the most sense was a per user option for Power BI Premium. So as opposed to buying premium on a per core basis, rather for smaller organizations that were looking for the premium capabilities, but not the unlimited distribution piece of that, they could now purchase Power BI Premium on a per user basis. So we announced this. We announced this in September of 2020, but we took the unusual step of not announcing the price at the same time. And there's a number of reasons why that had to happen, but because of that, many of you may not have heard a lot about it or even tried it because people were waiting to hear, well, okay, you're introducing a new price point and a new thing. What exactly is the price point? So earlier in March, we announced this new price point where now with Power BI Premium per user, if you have a pro license already, you can pay an additional $10 a month and get the additional premium capabilities I mentioned, like Paginated Reports and other things. Or if you're a brand new user to Power BI, you can just pay $20 and get both the pro and premium capabilities in a single license for yourself or for your colleagues. So that was very, very well received. I don't normally pat myself on the back for something, but I'm patting myself on the back here because I fought very, very hard to get to that price point because I thought it was a fair way to make the product available. And again, this is all made possible by a huge infrastructure investment we made with Power BI Premium, which is you hear colloquially called Premium Gen 2 or Premium Generation 2, where we take the entire premium infrastructure and we've now replatformed everything where we've, separated out the workload so things can run independently and you don't have to worry about some of the stuff if you've used premium today of memory contention or CPU contention because they're each running separately on separate nodes. And this is especially important for something like Paginated Reports because it offers a bunch of additional capabilities and enhancements from a security and scalability perspective. So with that in mind, and I've seen some of the questions here like, hey, are you using Premium per user or have you even heard of it? I'm just going to walk through, a tenant I have and kind of show you some of the things about how you can get started. We'll talk about when it'll be available and things like that, because there is documentation out there around this, but, considering a lot of you haven't even used it, this is probably a good way for you to just get familiarity. So I can go ahead and share my screen, right, Cecilia?
Absolutely. I will leave this open. The next slide has the slide to submit your questions.
Okay.
So stay connected to that, or you can always connect back.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So this is my own personal tenant. I'm kind of a masochist and I pay for my own E3 and Pro license. I keep meaning to switch to E5 and I just haven't done that yet. But this is my own tenant. So this is a production tenant, just like you would go and purchase on your own if you were one of the people using Power BI today across hundreds of thousands of organizations. And so a couple things that I want to call out here. First of all, I'm logged in as myself. And so I've purchased a Pro license for myself. Everyone has the option to go and initiate a premium per user trial from this icon in the upper right if they have a pro account and they've never had an in-product trial before. So if you've ever had an in-product trial before and then you convert it to a paid license, this might not show up, but everybody should have this available. This is one way you can start the trial. If you want to start using premium per user, you can do that today in your own tenant if you have a pro license. If you don't have a pro license, you have a free license and want to opt into a trial, it'll show you that you're opting into a pro trial, but then you'll get a pop-up saying, hey, we're also giving you the premium per user capabilities as well, because we're making this publicly available for purchase starting next Friday. And once that happens, all the in-product trials become premium per user trials. So you'll have, like, no matter what your current license is, if you want to try premium per user, you'll have the option to do this with an in-product trial. There's another way to do this, to get a trial through your Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So there was a bug yesterday that has been corrected, but it hasn't shown up here yet. You'll see under other services, Power BI Premium per User will show up. And if you choose to opt into it there, you'll get 25 licenses for your tenant and you'll be able to go and do that. You can only do that for 30 days and then you can renew it once for those 25 users. And so you could do it up to 60 days for 25 users going that way. The reason why I show you that, there are a lot of organizations that don't want their employees going and provisioning trials in product. And so if your company has shut that down, you may get a message saying that this isn't available. And then the only way you could try it is through that admin center being provisioned there. So that's something that that I wanted to kind of call out, because I get a lot of questions around, hey, how do I go and get started with this? And even though I put it in the documentation, I'm very guilty of this. I never read the docs. I never read the instructions for anything. So I wanted to just show that to folks. Once you provision the trial, you'll see up here that you have a premium per user trial. And you see I also, it shows here under my pro account, and then how many days left. So I just told you that it's going on sale starting next Friday. If you provision the trial before then, you'll still have 60 days from that point to try the product out and to make a decision on whether or not you have to purchase. And you can even do this afterwards, but it won't stop when we start selling the product. It'll just extend for 60 days if you want to go do that. So once you have premium per user enabled for your tenant, a few things will light up. And I want to just kind of walk through them. So the first, I'm going to go into the admin portal, and you'll see here there is a tenant setting that says premium per user. People get very confused by this because if you don't have somebody in your tenant yet using premium per user, this will just say it's not available. That's not what it means, and we're changing the wording there to make it a little bit more clear. What it means is these settings aren't available. So way it works is that the first person in the tenant who gets a license effectively turns on premium for that tenant, and then these settings are made available. Now, I don't know. I mean, if you want to just use the raise hand functionality in Teams, how many people here have used Power BI Premium at all in an organization?
Let me see the previous slide. At
1,
least
2,
we had 2. Okay,
2,
so
3. Okay, so a few. All right, so 5 it looks like, 5 or 6. So you may be familiar with the concept of a capacity settings page for Power BI Premium, where you can do a number of things in terms of turning workloads on and off, turning features on and off, things like that. With Premium per user, the whole point of this is you don't have to worry about a capacity anymore. The idea is that it just runs for your organization. Microsoft handles all the things behind the scenes, so there's no worry about load balancing or how much memory you need to assign to things or turning workloads on and off, because that's not an issue anymore. There are a few things that there were certain program managers wanted to make available to the tenant admin to administer for a premium per user for their tenant. And you see those here once it's enabled for the tenant you're working in, things like automatic page refresh and the timing around that, and then how the XMLA endpoint works for premium per user scenarios. There may be additional items that come to this in the future, but for now, this is all the stuff that you can control here as a tenant admin for premium per user for each of your users. Another item I'll just call out quickly is this item here around the in-product trial, which I guess is, here. So allow users to try Power BI paid features. So this is something, if you want to use this in-product trial path that I showed you, this has to be enabled, okay? And you can set it up to say, hey, only give certain security groups the ability to do this, or accept certain security groups you want to exclude, but that's how you would make sure that that's enabled, all right? So jumping back to the portal, once I say, okay, great, I've opted into my trial, my tenant settings are there, how do I go and start using Premium per user and all the capabilities that that enables? Well, it's handled at a workspace level. So you'll see here, I've clicked on this workspace icon, and this particular workspace, I have Premium per user turned on, and you could tell from this little icon here next to the name of the workspace. Now, I'm very proud of this because I came up with that design. So that little guy in front of a diamond was my idea. So I'm very proud of the fact that we actually went with that. But that is what denotes that it's Premium per user. If it was strictly premium, a premium capacity, you would just see a diamond. So that's the difference between the two. And thank you for the applause. I do appreciate that. Like, people are sick of me talking about that. But
yeah, I would say Power BI is the only one that gives you, well, I don't want to make a bad joke, but I really like the diamond too.
Okay, fair enough. So thank you. So in the workspace settings, you'll see here under premium, right now, this is a switch that says premium capacity on, off, and then I choose premium per user from the capacity dropdown. I'm going to tell this group something I've told nobody else publicly before today. So you're getting something before anybody else. This is going to change in the next few weeks. So what's going to happen here is you're going to have a radial button, and you'll be able to choose premium per user or a capacity, and then the capacities would show up in the dropdown. What we found, and this is, just a little insight to how a program manager job works, we had customers confused by having this in the dropdown of the other capacities in their organization. So existing premium the users internally would be setting up a workspace and they'd be like, oh, I want to use premium per user because they don't know the name of the capacity, or it's the first thing that's listed there. And they would start using it when the organizations didn't want them to. So we had thought about doing this originally, and we decided to postpone and get customer feedback. We got the feedback, so we're implementing that as part of the GA timeframe. So you're the first group that's heard this publicly at all. So congratulations. That's a little tidbit that nobody else got to hear. So with that, assuming you've turned that on and you have this capacity selected, that enables this diamond, and then you could start uploading this kind of content. So you see here, if you've never seen this before in a workspace because you don't have premium, this is what Paginated Report icons look like. So I'm going to click on Mickey, which is the actual name of Paginated Report Bear, not his stage name. He was actually named Mickey by my son. So Mickey's report comes up here, and if you've not seen this before, this is a sample report that I make available on my personal blog that I did quite some time ago, but gets a lot of use internally for testing scenarios. But there's good old Mickey with the Paginated Report. I'm going to switch it to a page view, so I have this nice page look in the middle of my browser, which just converts it to a PDF, and I can look at that, look how nice that looks here, and I can do page settings in terms of changing the page settings, and all the great things. If you're familiar with SSRS, all the great things you can do with Paginated Reports that you could do in SSRS, you can now do in a premium per user workspace and publish it as part of a premium per user app. And again, you can export this to multiple formats. So I'm going to export that to a PDF, and boom, look how easy that is and fast. And you see I've already done this 3 times. But so there you've got the badge photo. I'll show you just for fun some of the others. So Tiggy, you may recognize, some of you, by his stage name, Dataflow's dog. So that's Dataflow's dog there. So that's my son's favorite. Tiggy is his favorite. And so if you ever want to spend some time, go download this from my blog, ChristopherFinlan.com. Maybe turn off video, maybe buffering your video feed. I'd be more than happy to turn off my video, I assure you. So I will do that to make sure that we have the best bandwidth possible. I'll show you one more here, Mr. Chomp, just because you'll see who Mr. Chomp is, Elmo. So there you go. So anyway, if you read through these, all the different manager comments, when my son and I used to act out with stuffed animals, these were the personalities they had. So there's a little insight into my psyche hidden in this report here. So one of the biggest questions I get at this point is like, okay, great. So I can set up a premium per user workspace and just get a premium per user license for the authors. And then all the users who have pro can access content in here, right? No. The answer is you cannot do that. So the thing with premium per user, and one of the things that took so long is that we needed to ensure that it didn't disrupt other parts of the Power BI business, which were very successful. So the way it works is just like the way it works with Pro. If you have content in a premium per user workspace, you need to have a premium per user license to author or view content in that workspace or app. There is one quote unquote exception that I just want to make everybody aware of. You can subscribe pro users to content in a premium per user workspace. So they can get the attachment and view that in their inbox because, again, everybody's getting the same attachment. If they try to go back to the service and they don't have a premium per user license, of course, they would receive a pop-up saying, hey, you can't view this. But we did want to make that available, especially for people with paginated reports. We have one person creating content, and they would just set up mailbox forwarding rules if we didn't do that. So that is a way that you can use that. So this attachment can be PDF or just email. No, the attachment, you get the full report attachment as part of that. So so I could send this to everybody who's a pro user of my tenant, and then whatever the format is that I want to use, Excel, the accessible PDF format that we support, PowerPoint, Word, you name it, they would get the full report attachment in their email inbox. So that's something, just want to make you aware. We had this documented for several months, but just something to let people know. And again, they just can't go view it back in the service, but you can subscribe them to this content and they get the full report attachment. So yes, it is awesome. Thank you. That's one of the reasons we put it in there. So that's something I wanted to make, just make folks aware of. And, you know, a number of the, like, I'm not going to talk about all the different features you get with Power BI Premium because, you know, I'm not the best expert to talk about things like the XMLA endpoint or deployment pipeline support or all those things like that. But this is a very exciting way to go and license premium now for organizations. And, you know, just to preempt some of the questions I get is, well, when should I use premium per user? When should I use a premium capacity? If you're using a premium capacity today, it's very unlikely, and I would say very, very unlikely that I would ever recommend you drop down to premium per user. The ability to send to unlimited recipients or have unlimited viewing is very, very powerful. And in general, you know, most people just kind of do the brute math on this sort of thing. And effectively, if you're talking about $20 a user a month, once you get above 250 users, a capacity of P1 is going to make more sense anyway. But we expect that in terms of organizations that would use this, if you're large organizations, you may have pockets of users that use SSRS standard or need auto ML capabilities. It's a perfect use case to use Power BI Premium per user as a way to empower those particular parts of the organization. If you're smaller organizations, again, this is a great entry point. If you're an organization, you're like, I don't want to deal with management of premium at all. You could go ahead and buy premium per user for everyone. That's not normally what I would expect organizations to do, but I've had at least one or two companies say they would consider doing that, even though it would cost them significantly more. Some people pay more for the convenience. That's fine. But that's kind of my short overview of what it is, because again, I keep telling people, ultimately, it's just a different way to license premium. It's not a new feature. It's just a new way to license existing features. So, so I'm seeing some questions coming in here through the chat.
Yes, that's actually the first question from Menti. How
chat.
can EFI users get PPU? Just
so you can go
balance,
buy.
yeah.
You can go buy an add-on license for. So the reason we introduced the add-on license was for E5, because you can't pull Power BI Pro out of that. So the ability to go purchase that $10 a user month add-on is something that you can go do for E5. So that's the way you would go.
Okay. Do you want me to share the screen?
Yeah,
or?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
I can stop sharing. I can stop sharing.
Let me find it. Where is it? Here. So I think you're seeing the questions right now. So this is the second question. Is the PPU data flows available and the same as premium capacity or more like Pro?
Yes. So so it works effectively like a premium capacity. There was an article or blog post about how that worked, but that was a major scenario for the data for the PPU. So it works the same as premium. Sorry, I thought it was deployment pipelines for a second. I just saw D and started answering. So yes, it works like premium. However, one of the things you have to be aware of is, again, any content that's in a premium per user workspace, you can't go and reuse it in another workspace by people who don't have a premium per user license. There were some concerns, and I think valid based on the questions I was getting throughout the preview period. A lot of questions were just, how can I work around the limitations of premium per user so I don't have to buy premium? And people looking to do things like move data flows, refreshes into a premium per user workspace, and then move them back into a premium workspace. We have mechanisms in place to prevent people from doing that, or we force you to do a full refresh. So you should get the same capabilities that you get as you would with a premium capacity. Just understand that you still need a premium per user license to access those data flows in that way.
All right. Let me move to the next one. What are paginated reports and how are they different from regular Power BI reports? What advantages?
Yep. So I think so I'll see if I can find the video. So Patrick LeBlanc, he and I speak all the time. If you're familiar with who Patrick is, he's one of the 2 members of the Guy in a Cube team, and they do a video series. I was on there doing a call-in show doing one of the shows like 2-3 weeks ago. They do that every Saturday morning, generally. If you don't watch them on YouTube, I strongly recommend following their channel. They give you a ton of great advice. But Patrick did a Paginated Reports 101 video not that long ago to answer this and types of questions like this. People often hear the term Paginated Report, and the very basic answer is it's defined or designed for printing scenarios or things where you're trying to go out to PDF. One of the major use cases of Paginated Reports that people do use is there is no limitation on the amount of data you can export. So if you're looking to export to Excel, you can go beyond the 150,000 row limit. And in fact, with Premium per User and Premium Gen 2, we've introduced a bunch of enhancements which makes that process even better than before. We do a bunch of things like caching, so you can do millions of rows of data fairly seamlessly with a Paginated Report. And again, because you can use a Power BI data set, it gives you the ability to go and work around some of the limitations you have with the Power BI visuals. Again, things like PDF, it's designed for the types of use cases which Power BI reports simply are not. Now, if you haven't used SSRS before, there's a whole lot of things you can do with Paginated Reports that go well beyond that. You talk about things like pagination. Just imagine being able to page from one to the other as you're viewing your records. You can't really do that with a Power BI report. But there is no concept of a data model behind it. Yes, you can use that as a data source, but it's very much, SQL Server Reporting Services was designed for one data source specifically, SQL Server. And so we love flat tables of data. Like, oh, give me flat tables of data every day. I'll take that 10 times out of 10. Power BI reports, they're focused very much on analysis services. They require a model for everything or a semantic layer if you're using direct query. So that's a very, very big difference, but it introduces a lot of advantages. Like I could connect to multiple Power BI data sets, and I can set up a parameter that changes the queries for each of those that users can interact with at runtime, and they can get back they can change the views across all those different data sets. Think about, I'll just give you an anecdotal example of why this is kind of a cool thing. Somebody was like, oh man, I wish dashboards would let me do exactly that. I'm like, well, you can create a dashboard using a Paginated Report. And I pointed him to a blog post that a guy named Jason Thomas did a while back for SSRS. And he's like, oh, this is perfect. I didn't have any idea that Paginated Reports does this. So it's it can do a lot of things. I recommend you watch Patrick's video because I think he does a nice job trying to boil it down to a few simple things to keep in mind. But it's a huge, huge asset to people because a lot of the things, I think we were just looking at the top 10 ideas, items on ideas.powerbi.com. Paginated Reports can solve, I think, 5 or 6 of them. So, yes, I know a lot of people would love to be able to do that right in a Power BI report, but now that you have Paginated Reports available to you with such a cost-friendly price point, it should be a really great way to expand upon what you're doing with your other Power BI content. And some of you may have heard, we're introducing this in the next few months. So there's going to be a new visual in your Power BI report, Power BI desktop report, that you can go and add a paginated report as a visual in a Power BI report. And then you can hook up the parameters with your filters and slicers. And so if you interact with other content, it'll update the paginated report right there. And then you can independently export that content to Excel, PDF, etc. So that's something we're really, really excited. You should, stay tuned
Amazing.
to see that too. Yes, we're very excited about that. I feel kind of silly that we've waited this long because we did this first as a hackathon project 3 years ago. And so as a PM, I feel silly. Like, boy, I surely should have prioritized this, but I think this is the right time with the price point being changed, where a lot of people get a lot of use out of that, and there's been a ton of excitement in the community about this. So
Amazing. And for those who are new to Paginated Reports, you can download from, if you go to your portal, you can find it here. So you can start creating Paginated Reports using this.
Yep. So Power BI Report Builder is completely free. Paginated Report Builder, completely free. You can download it. You can connect to Power BI datasets with just a pro license, or if you're a free user, you can connect to your My Workspace, start building them locally. You actually can export data right there. You can render the report and export it out to all the different formats I showed you here, and get ready for the launch next Friday, premium per user, or start using it in your organization if you have premium today, or any of the A SKUs. So we just also became available on A1, 2, and 3 starting in February.
Awesome. And next question, when will the recently announced Autoload Excel will be available? Really looking forward to it.
Autoload Excel. So is this I can connect Excel to a Power BI dataset and then load it into Excel online and view it there? That's the only thing that I'm aware of that Excel recently announced as it came to Excel. Correct. Okay, so correct. In the next few months. I don't know exactly what the date is, but I know it's not far away.
Awesome. Okay, users who received Paginated reports via email should have PPU access.
No, they should not. So in all seriousness, like I said, to access the content in the portal, yes, you need a premium per user license. However, we do allow pro users to be subscribees to these reports. They can get the full attachment, but they can't go back to the portal and view it there. And again, the reason for this is very straightforward. It would completely disrupt our existing premium capacity model. And we didn't make a decision to go that direction initially. And we had to work very hard to come up with a solution that didn't disrupt that. But that's the thing where you do have that as your one option to share content. Because again, if you just subscribe yourself and send the email, like, it's the same thing. So
perfect. It's a block killer, Sandeep says. Is the max dataset size, artifact size limit will be the same in PPU as in PPC to 25 gigs and dataset total within the tenant?
So this is a very tricky one. So I can give you the straightforward answer as it relates to premium per user. So the way the premium per user is aligned is that effectively when you're talking about all the different features, I keep forgetting I'm not on camera anymore, so my hand gestures aren't making any sense.
You can turn it on.
No, I was afraid people would see it buffering or whatnot, but all the different features that you get in premium are there. The only thing that's really different when you talk about P1, 2, or 3 is the size of the data set. So actually with premium per user, you're getting the effective equivalent of a P3. So you get 100 gig as the data set size max. Now, the engineering team for AS will scream loudly. That doesn't mean you can actually have a 100 gig model because there's a bunch of different factors that goes into it, but ostensibly that's the maximum size. And you can have multiple of those models that you try to refresh at once, but again, they will, there's a whole explanation about how this works with Gen 2 in terms of refresh that is documented. But that's what premium per user aligns with when it comes to data set size. There is no maximum data set total within the tenant. It's really more of that's the size of a single model and then the amount of time it takes for multiple models if you're trying to do them in parallel to go and refresh. Oh, my video was buffering. Oh, okay, then that's fine. Then I will turn it back on. Paginated Report Bear wants all the extras.
There you go.
There you go.
And next question. I've been opening Paginated reports with the URL. Is there a way to open with the UI of the application, not the Power BI service environment?
So is this the UI? So this is for a Power BI embedded scenario? I guess I'm a little unclear. If you could clarify that in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, that'd be great.
I think this was Julie.
I don't want to
think
put anybody
I
on the
saw her.
spot. I want to make sure I give the question the proper respect.
No, I think that Julie posted this in the chat. That's why I was looking for.
Hey, this is Juan. Can you hear me?
Juan. Yes.
Yeah, hi Juan.
Yeah, I've been working lately with Paginated Report. So
That's
what I
great.
do is I have a Power BI report, a normal report with a column that has a URL to the report.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I create an application from that report, the original report for Power BI looks great because, you know, when you create an application, removes a lot of menus and headers and stuff. But when I click on the column to open the paginated report, it opens with the normal with the usual Power BI site, correct? So I want to know if I can open that paginated report only as if it was inside the application. I don't know if that's possible.
So there is the URL parameter that's supported for both Power BI reports and Paginated Reports, which opens it without the window around it at all. So that URL parameter, and I apologize. I'm trying to remember. It is I think it's chromeless equals true.
Yes.
That does work for Paginated Reports. I'm just trying.
Great. That's exactly what I need because
Yep.
it looks kind of different from the application to the paginated report. Thanks.
Yes, and the other thing, so that page view, so I like the page view quite a bit that I showed you as opposed to the default, because the default is kind of optimized for the browser, and for a lot of people, they like having it that page view. That's actually also available via URL parameter. So you can have it open chromeless with just that in that page view where you have the nice look and feel of a page if you want as well. It's in the documentation. I'll have to go dig it up, but that was something we added not that long ago. But yes, that should all be there. There's a lot of stuff you can do with URL parameters with Paginated Reports. There's a ton of stuff you can do in terms of not only the export format, but all the different knobs there to turn. Like there's an entire page in the documentation that talks about that.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Of course, my pleasure.
Awesome. Next question. What is the best way to migrate reports from SSRS to Paginated Reports?
Okay, so a couple of things here. So there's a document out there that I put together that's available that talks through, at a high level, doing a migration from SSRS to Paginated Reports. There is in GitHub a tool that Patrick did a video on, I think last month. It was either last month or the month before, that walks through how to use the RDL migration tool. And what the RDL migration tool does is it allows you to go and migrate the content from your SSRS environment to the Power BI cloud, and it'll kick out any reports that don't potentially have some of the features that we don't support yet in the Power BI cloud. It'll also kick out any reports that we don't have the Power BI, the certain data sources supported. If it's using a shared data source, it'll convert it to an embedded data source in your file. That's probably the fastest way to move content, but I think you'll find that there may be at least a few reports in every environment that we don't have support for certain things. The good news is one of the major items was we didn't have ODBC support. That we recently released last week, ODBC support for Paginated Reports, which opens up a ton of additional scenarios. So that's something to keep in mind. But there is documentation out there around there. There is that piece. This is an area we're looking at putting together more comprehensive documentation and tooling around in the upcoming months now that we've kind of gotten through this initial hurdle. But that's kind of a short answer for how you could go do that. Oh, look at Sandeep going with putting the
oh, there it is. Yeah.
It's the Alex Powers of today. This is awesome. Okay.
Can be Paginated Reports built using the existing data flows and data sets?
So you can use Paginated Reports against your existing Power BI data sets. Absolutely. You can use, we don't have direct connectivity to data flows right now. You can take a data flow and land it in a Power BI data set and connect to it that way. That can be done. But yes, one of our major use cases is using a Power BI data set as your data source for a Paginated report and building a report against that.
Awesome. I think the answer is yes, but just confirming PPU user can use dataset flows from Pro workspaces.
You can.
Any plans to make Paginated Report Builder UI better, as intuitive as desktop?
I'm hurt. How could you say that about that? So, look, I am fully aware of the dated look and feel of Power BI Report Builder because, as somebody pointed out at the time, hey, this just looks like regular Report Builder with a new coat of paint. Yes, you caught us. That's exactly what it is. What you'll see is our plans here are really to have a new web-based authoring experience. So what you'll see is we'll continue to make minor modifications to Report Builder, but we're really putting our efforts into having a new web-based authoring experience that, you know, connects to things like Power Query and ties in more holistically with the entire Power BI service. People can use it on Macs, and the entire authoring experience is kind of redone to make it more user-friendly and update it. Now, the challenge with that is we can't lose a lot of the functionality that we have in there because guess what? The people who do use SSRS do use those things, and you can do some amazing things because you can write custom code and do basically whatever you want with Paginated Reports. I mean, you can write all sorts of things and do expressions, and it's amazing the things that people do. We can't just get rid of that. But right now we're focused on widening the funnel, and for Power BI desktop authors, or people who are used to using that, providing something that's more familiar to them in terms of the look and feel. And you'll see that here. We'll provide more information here over the coming months.
Awesome. Actually, if my mind doesn't betray me, we used to use the same application before.
Well, it still exists. It's called Microsoft Report Builder.
Yeah.
There's two versions. There's two.
Yeah, well, we used to use it for Power BI as well. Then the yellow one came up, right?
Yes, yes. Oh, you could use it and then
at the
just upload
beginning
it.
because
Yes,
they were
at the
not
very beginning. Yes,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right. Oh, very good.
Okay, next question. Does Paginated Report Builder connect to the same connectors as the desktop?
No. So the way that Paginated Report Builder works is because it's based on the SSRS technology, we had our own set of data connectors that we have and maintain. And Power BI is everything lands in an analysis services model, and they use Power Query to connect to the data sources, then land the data in the analysis services model. So we don't have that behind the scenes. So trying to have parity with all the things that Power Query supports would be impossible. However, what we decided to do is go and say, hey, let's support Power Query. So we're active. That's something that you'll hear more about. Our plans are to go and have connectivity to Power Query online in the future and offer that as a way to go and directly against that. But like I said, because you can connect to a Power BI data set, you can land the data there. And we do support direct query, by the way. So if you use direct query, you can use a Paginated report against a direct query data source and do and go and connect to that and work around that limitation. But we have connectivity to several options from SSRS that people are familiar with. The biggest ones, obviously, SQL Server Analysis Services, Multidimensional and Tabular, Oracle, Teradata, ODBC. We do have Dataverse connectivity now, Azure SQL DB, Synapse, and so those are the major items there to go and use, other than Power BI datasets.
Perfect. My hearing service will have feature parity with desktop when you said provide online
That is
UI.
not what I said. I was talking specifically about Paginated Reports and our plans for web authoring there, and it will actually take us some time to have parity between Power BI Report Builder and web authoring. I cannot, nor will I, speak to the plans for the desktop, because that's nothing but a trap.
When are you going to give PR the extra little bit of love that it deserves?
I saw this in the chat. I can't tell if this person's just trolling me or if that what exactly are you looking for? If you're just trolling me, it's fine. It's a good troll. But
I think it's Fernando, right? No, who said that?
Who said that?
Yeah, Fernando.
Lorenzo. Oh. No, Fernando, you're right. Yes,
Yeah,
Fernando. Yeah, so Fernando, what's the deal? Like, is it not getting it? Like, what love are you expecting? Like, it has its own mascot. Like, what are you talking about?
You can unmute Fernando if you want.
Yeah, I'm very curious, because if you're just trolling me, it's fine. But it's fine.
No, I'm not
There
trolling.
he is,
I'm
there he
just waiting an honest answer.
Well, but what are you looking for? Like, what extra love would you like to see us give it?
Let me make a team back with Patrick, and I'll let you know.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Awesome. So I don't see any more questions here, but I see some questions in the chat. Maybe Lorenzo was saying if you basically can export a whole table from Power BI report.
Yes. So you can, and that's one of the big things. So I mentioned earlier that Paginated Report visual. So think of the following use case. I create a Paginated report against the Power BI dataset that's nothing more than a table. And I refuse to believe anybody on this call can't go to Power BI Report Builder, connect to a Power BI dataset, walk through a table wizard, and create a table. All right. Now, that's the bare minimum. If you take Paginated Reports in a day, there's an online video course. It walks you through that. I refuse to believe that people can't do that. All right. So no matter how hard some things in Power BI Report Builder may be, I believe everybody can do that. So you create that and publish it to the service. Then you go and create your Power BI desktop report, pull it in. You've set up some parameters in your Paginated report potentially, so that query that you run, you can hook it up to your filters, and then you can go and surface that in your Power BI report, click your filters and filters, and then hit export from that Paginated report you created with the data that you want to get from that data set. That can do the whole table, more than 150,000 rows. That's the power of that scenario, as opposed to doing drill through or something like that. You can do it right there on your Power BI report, and that's what we're working on right now. So yes, and that's one of the major use cases, and it'll maintain all the formatting if you export it to Excel, which is I think the top item right now on Power BI ideas. So if you have all the, like, as you get more familiar with Report Builder and building Paginated reports, you start adding formatting options to your table in a Paginated report. When you export that to Excel, it looks exactly like it does on the screen when you have it in the Power BI service. So
even if you have more than one dimension.
Yes.
All right. There is a question from Ellie. SSRS with SharePoint integrated mode used to have a way to easily set up data alerts. Dashboards alerts are a little tricky. Are there any enhancements planned which bring alerts, which are easier to set up with Power BI?
So there are. It's an interesting conversation going on internally right now because, one of the major, probably the biggest ask I get, if you're familiar with SSRS, is where is data-driven subscriptions for Paginated reports? And that's something we're planning to do. And then the question is, well, what is happening with the alerting functionality? And there's a different team that technically owns alerting right now, and they're trying to make decisions there on what they do. And so there are plans to have alerting available on things like reports and specific data points in reports. I know if you know Justina on the Power BI team, one of the PMs who does the AI pieces, she is very interested in having alerts for a number of her scenarios. So there's a lot of conversations going on internally about how we go and move forward with alerts. I don't have a specific answer for you yet, but yes, there are enhancements planned. It's just what those enhancements are and the time frame is what's kind of TBD right now.
All right. There is a new question on the screen. Power BI REST API reports export to file options limitations. PPU is not supported at this stage. Any idea if this will be available?
So one of the things, just the first, Paginated reports are available in this scenario with Premium per User, and we have it very limited. You can do it once every 5 minutes, effectively make a call and spit out a report. We have to be very careful that we don't inadvertently open this up as a workaround to unlimited distribution, because if we just made the API available freely for both report types, people could just set that up with Power Automate, go and send it to anybody they wanted, and effectively distribute the content in that manner. So there are potentially plans to do that from the team that owns that API. There's a team in Israel that actually owns that particular API and scenario. I don't know when, and one of the big reasons they haven't done it yet is they prefer to do it on a per day basis as opposed to per hour, which I'm perfectly fine with. But it's not trivial to go and implement that. So yes, but it will be very, very limited, just like the Paginated Report one, assuming it is implemented.
Awesome. I see a last
Paginated.
question. I'm sorry?
I said use Paginated reports.
So Lorenzo just downloaded the report builder. He's wondering if he needs the Power BI Premium per User also to use that feature for personal use.
No, you do not. Like, Power BI Report Builder is completely free. You can use it, completely on its own. You don't need any sort of premium license to use that. I would encourage people to go download that and start using it today. You can connect to your Power BI datasets, no matter what license you have right now, in Power BI locally with Power BI Report Builder. Start building reports against that. And then you could publish the content to a premium or premium for user workspace once that's, either you opted to a trial or you go ahead and purchase it. And it doesn't matter if the data set itself isn't sitting in that workspace, your report will still work. It's just the report content itself that needs to sit in there. But absolutely go start using that locally to start practicing and learning more and seeing how it can work in your scenarios. Because again, once that visual comes along, you'll be able to do cool things like use bookmarks to show it during hover and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of neat scenarios that that'll enable. And what people find is that, yes, there's a bit of a steeper learning curve up front for certain scenarios. And again, I refuse to believe that nobody here can't figure out how to do the table wizard. But as you start learning more and more, like the amount of stuff you can do there that you can't do with a Power BI desktop report is remarkable. Now, I won't say that it's necessarily the easiest thing to do. I mean, even the PM of the product has to go back sometimes and reread how to do certain things, but there's so much cool stuff you can do there. I mean, just one example, I showed you the Mickey report. One of the cool things, and this is actually on my blog, is you can set up a subscription where the image is actually different than what's captured in the PDF that you get. And you show just the image is showing one page, and then you hide it for the PDF piece because you're showing something else. Like you could do really cool things like that with Paginated Reports because of the expression language it supports. So definitely go download Paginated Report Builder or Power BI Report Builder as soon as you can, because again, there's no license restriction there.
Yeah, and if they need practice, they also have the Microsoft Learn portal.
You have the Microsoft Learn portal, Paginated Reports in a day, or Paginated Report Bear was a vital part of that. Peter Myers insisted that he be in that. And we did that just before the lockdown of everything last year. Like it was really crazy to think that, I was in the studio and then like it was less than 10 days later, I have not been to the office since that day. I was sent home for 3 weeks. So yeah, that was one of the last things. And the timing on that couldn't have been better because we originally weren't going to do that. And thank God we did. We did.
All right. Any other questions? Anyone wants to go on mute and ask anything? Comment. What do you think about the PPU? Are you excited?
Hopefully folks are excited. I'm very excited to get this to GA. It's been, I think, 19 months, something like that. I've been working on this in one form.
So Chris, Sandeep here. So I'm working on a migration from Tableau to Power BI, and what tipped the scale for us was PPU for report.
That's great.
So so thank you for that.
No, thank you. That's great to hear. It's great to hear.
I see, Fernando, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I think that for the small and medium-sized companies, there's no question that they should go to PPU.
Yeah, that's the hope. And I'm very excited to see the adoption of this and get people started. And it was a little frustrating because nobody was touching it for months, waiting for the price point. Now we've announced the price. Like now we've gotten the interest in people like, oh, okay, now we're excited. And so it's been nothing but more and more anticipation. So that's great to hear, Fernando. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I see a lot of thank yous. Yes, thank you very much, Chris, for this, and everybody.